Okay, everybody, wherever you are on the planet, I can see some people from England, and I can see some people from Santa Fe. London is just the stroke of midnight. You turn into a, what do you call it, into a crystal ball? No, you turn into a pumpkin. That's right. So everybody there, hello, Bobby Falls. Hello, Larry. Hello, Doris in Canada. And hello, Ifisha in Bali. Civilized hours there. Hello, Karen. Hello, Linda. Everybody, that's page 1. See who's on page 2. Kim, Matt, Mary, Anthony, Ada. People repeat. It's very curious. Sometimes people on page 1 are also on page 2. Okay, happy to see you all. Barbara, there you are. So I'm in Santa Fe as usual, in my little condo with my Buddha. And what else to say? So here we are for 1 hour. Let's make the most of it. Thank you, Charmaine. You're the host, are you?
Actually, Alexis is the host tonight.
Okay,
blah, blah, blah.
Okay, darlings. Well, we just think for 1 hour, we're going to listen, think about, analyze. Who's down there? Larry. Oh, yeah. We're going to think about, contemplate, process, internalize some thoughts here, if they're useful. They're coming from the Buddha via my Australian mouth. I'm actually American as well as British, but I think I can't sort of stop the Australian part of me. So how to be Australian, British, American, I've got to please 3 lots of people. It's quite difficult. The English feel easier to please than the Americans, because the English and the Australians, especially the working class, my working class daddy came to Australia when he was 14. Australians and Brits get along, but I don't know, we'll see. Americans are a bit more sensitive, I think. If I say rude words like bloody, Americans might get upset, so I better not say it. But it's like a normal word in England. Or bum. You don't say it in America, do you? Anyway, I better shut up. I'm raving on like a maniac. Anyway, here I am in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And we're going to talk about, I thought we'd talk about today. So we think we're going to talk about this so we can develop take some tools from this information. It's meant to be advice, so that we can develop our amazing potential, so we can be a benefit to others. One baby step at a time, okay? That's what we're here for. So I was thinking today, I was thinking this morning, I put on something on Facebook or somewhere about compassion. And we talk about the wisdom wing and we talk about the compassion wing. And the wisdom wing is all about how to put our poor little old neurotic selves together, to be less neurotic, a bit more brave, a bit more courageous, a bit more confident, a little bit less suffering, but therefore just naturally a little bit more empathetic, But part of the problem is many people, I notice, many people have more of a tendency for the wisdom wing, meaning in the sense of being kind of, I don't know, I have a tendency for that, to be a bit sharp, a bit no nonsense, a bit clever, smarty pants. So clear and kind of strong and direct. But then sometimes maybe lacking the compassion wing, the empathy bit. But some people have more empathy, but don't have much wisdom wing. And they're the ones who get into trouble, who get used like a doormat, who fall in love easily, who get very attached, but also have really big hearts. And then when they look at the world and see all the suffering in the world, they become completely overwhelmed. And some of you have to be this way for sure, So what to do about that? Because we need compassion. But what's interesting is I always quote His Holiness Dalai Lama says, compassion is not enough. Meaning well, as Lama Zopa says, is not enough. So that's the wisdom wing. So speaking kind of colloquially, it means kind of a sort of no nonsense, optimistic and sharp and clear, that kind of aspect. But the trouble is, so how do we get that? This is the point. So forget that in a sense. That's the wisdom wing. Let's look at the compassion wing. So what are you going to do if you're one of those big-hearted people who weep when you see a cat suffer, who burst into tears when you hear children suffering, but who also get upset and freaked out when you hear about those things? So you have compassion, but you also get upset and not angry, because you internalize it. You don't get angry and want to punch the people, but you get depressed. What to do about that? Well, this is the difficulty, There's some people, and this is my bit, when I see problems outside, I'll get angry. I mean, less these days, hopefully, but when I used to be an old political activist, when I saw problems, I'd be out there with my sleeves rolled up, bring it on, baby. And in a way that can give you courage, I didn't get kind of overwhelmed depressed by it. I thought I'd go and change the world. Well, that's foolish, but still, there was some optimism there. But the good-hearted people, you tend to get depressed when you see bad things, isn't it? And so you want to put your head in the sand, or you're overwhelmed by the suffering. So you can't bear to watch the news. You can't bear to talk about the suffering because it's just too much for you. So what are you going to do? Well, either case, It's very interesting. I remember, I always quote Martin Luther King, blew my mind. He said, it's good to find fault. It's good to see the problems out there. Keep your eyes open. Look at the problems. So people, and so either one of us will be like you, who'll maybe get depressed and not want to look at it, or a person like me will want to throw my sleeves up and punch people in the nose. Neither of those, okay? What we've got to do is be realistic. This is the way the world is. So even if you haven't got the view of karma, some of us have the view of karma, and at least we can go, we have an answer to the question, why is all this suffering? But even if you don't have that, if you don't know why is all this suffering, if you don't know why, it doesn't matter. Just do what we can. I think this is the most important point. Do what we can, one step at a time. Now, if you can go tomorrow to one country and solve all their problems and make them rich and give them all food and cure COVID-19 overnight, I'll pay your airfare. You go, I promise. But what if you can't? And we know 99% of the time, even when it's a mouse who's suffering, what can we do? Sometimes not much. So don't get depressed about it and don't get angry about it either way, but keep this action aspect. And then the thing is, each of us can do is what we can do. So if you're a clever person and you've got hundreds of millions of dollars, like, Bill Gates, who so amazingly has given all these billions of dollars, and so, and then he can do all these massive projects all over the world. Go for it. If you can do that, go for it. But if you've got no money and you've got only two hands and you see one ant who's suffering, try and help the ant. One mouse who's suffering, try and help the mouse. Your next door neighbor, try and help your next door neighbor. Yes, you read the newspapers, you read your iPad, and it is overwhelming. But see, okay, that is suffering. If I could, I would do something. So you've got to have a stable mind to do this and not get overwhelmed by it, or not get angry and want to kill everybody, because they're the two options, So all we can do is that. And then then maybe you can save two mice. Then maybe suddenly you might get a friend, and then you put some money together, and suddenly you've started a little project, and now you can help many people. You read so much about people like that. There's a woman I know, who my Bodhisattva Trust supports. I've got this thing called Bodhisattva Trust that supports a few projects, any money that comes into it, we use it to help little projects. And do that too, fantastic, We're able to do that. Someone gave me some money, so we're supporting some people. So there's one woman we support, this little librarian. She's a librarian, in New York somewhere, a librarian. And she's in an area where there are lots of poor people. So, you can sit there and get depressed about all the poor people. You could sit there and get angry and blame all the politicians. Or like this woman, and this is my point, you get out there and think, and this is what Martin Luther King said, it's good to find fault, but then you say, what can I do to help? That's compassion. Not get depressed and put your head under the sand, not get angry and shout and yell and who can I blame, but what can I do to help? That's the miracle. So that person now, she's got this project, and then it grows one step at a time. And I'll tell you, that's how our prison project started. It was one person. I was editing Mandala magazine, back in the 90s when I was based in California, and living at Land of Medicine Buddha, and Mandala was run from there. 1995, I think, 96, I got a letter from this young prisoner. I always tell the story. This young fellow had read a book by Lama Yeshe, and in it was the address of Mandala. I was the editor. The letter came on my desk. That's your mouse, that's your ant. Don't think, who's going to save that ant? It's your ant, baby, you save it. Who's going to save that mouse? Who's going to help that homeless person in front of you? You can, give them $5. Do what you can, see it, it's in front of you. You've got a karmic appearance to see that person. Well, that's what happened. This letter came on my desk. And I was the editor. He wrote a letter. It was very moving. He was a young man, he's 20 or 19. He told me he'd been in prisons in gangs since he's 11, in prison since he's 12. He's now got 3 life sentences. He read Lama Yeshe. He was moved by the talk of compassion. And what can you help me? So what can I do? I look in my pocket. I got a couple $100 a month. Mandala had no budget. So again, you could either get angry, this poor man, how dare, blah, 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 or you can just put your head in the sand again. No. I thought, okay, what can I do? So I sent him a book. Well, within a year, 40 people were writing. So I got a bit overwhelmed. Another letter would come, I'd think, oh my God, how can I do this? But when you allow it to grow one step at a time, the woman, this librarian, she started helping some people, a bit of food, making sandwiches to this person, giving $5 to that person. She knew it, she organized it. Now she's got this little project, Things grow like that. You start small, and then you grow it, and then you get confidence. So you're not saving the world. I mean, I'm not saving the world. I helped a few prisoners, for God's sake. But it can grow. And then the interesting point is this. I always remember when I first heard the teachings about bodhicitta, it's outrageous, over the top kind of shift in the mind. These great saints, basically, what the Christians would call saints, these bodhisattvas. They've made this paradigm shift in their mind. And no longer the I, me, is in the front. It's others. We almost can't imagine that level, but you grow it slowly. It's the result of incredible compassion, great compassion for many lifetimes, growing it, you know? So what happened? I forget what I was saying. What was that? Bodhicitta, growing, bodhicitta, one. I'm sorry, I distract myself. And while I'm talking, I'm thinking other thoughts and I get lost. I get an editor in my head. What was I saying? What was I saying, Charmaine? I have to catch me out. What was I saying?
Growing compassion a little bit at a time.
Okay, then what else was I saying? Now, as soon as you start to find it, then it's gone completely. I was thinking about this woman. I was thinking about the project, thinking about bodhicitta, the bodhisattvas, the amazing bodhisattvas. God, I've lost it. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. What else? Any more clues? What was I saying? Oh, never mind. Talking about compassion.
We're so excited, Robina. We're so excited to hear about growing bodhicitta, and it'll grow.
Okay, I know, but there's a point. The prisoners. No, they're helping one step at a time. Oh no, wait on. Prisoners helping. Yeah, okay. Now I remember. Okay, when I first heard the things on bodhicitta, it seemed, when I first began the Dharma, it seemed insane. I thought, who are the? I didn't mind. When I was a Catholic, I loved all the saints. And I yearned to be like, say, for example, Saint Therese of Lisieux. But you sort of feel, well, that's a saint, and she's born like that, and they're special. There's no course to show you how to become a saint, you know? So the thing is, though, with the Tibetan Buddhist one, the Mahayana path, this course is called Learning to Become a Buddha, baby, and you can become a Bodhisattva. You can become like that. But in the beginning, it felt way too much for me. I could not cope. I couldn't see, in other words, a link between where I am now and becoming like that, because I hadn't learned the path enough. I didn't know enough. And then it was seemed too high, you know? I couldn't see the steps in between. But then I heard His Holiness say, it blew my mind. This is what I'm getting at here now. I won't lose the plot this time. His Holiness said, if you want to help others, practice compassion. If you want to help yourself, practice compassion. Now, when we hear that in the West, we get, oh, that sounds like selfish. No, this is my point here. When you sit there and you see suffering, and then you just get angry, and you know, and that's what I did. I got angry, and that motivated me to get out there and try and change the world and become a revolutionary. There might have been some good that was done, but because it was based on anger, it didn't last. As His Holiness said, when in one interview, His Holiness, the journalist said, well, anger looks good. It makes you act to change the world. His Holiness said, I know what you mean, but if it's only anger, it won't last. But if it's compassion, you'll never give up, you know? That's one aspect. So the other aspect is if you see the suffering, but you get depressed, you can't cope with it. So you bury your head in the sand and you become paralyzed. Well, that's no good either. So this is my point now. If you just decide, I'll do what I can. So in that case with the prison project, I didn't think, oh, I'm going to start a big project called Liberation Prison Project and a $400,000 a year budget and 9 full-time staff. I would have fainted if I thought that. No, I sent one book to this one man who asked. It started with one book. That woman, that librarian, it started with one gift. And then you allow it to grow. And what I'm getting at, this is my point, then you get confidence. As soon as you do something, even save one ant, you get confidence. It lifts you. You don't feel so hopeless because you know you can do something. You might not be able to save every ant on the planet. You might not be able to take every prisoner out of prison. You might not be able to give every poor person money. But if you've made the prayers in the past, look at Bill Gates and Mr. What's his name? His friend, Warren Buffett. He gave his $55 billion profit 10 years ago to Bill Gates. And I think he's made another $55 billion. He's got the karma to make money. So then they can do that amount, but you'd start small. I mean, look at Jeff Bezos's wife, his divorced wife. She got like $60 billion. She's giving it away like crazy. So you start somewhere, you know, and the point I'm getting at is this. That's if you want to help yourself, you practice compassion, honey, and it'll be good for you. And don't think that is inferior. It is profound. That's what His Holiness said. And suddenly that gave me an ability to understand where to start with compassion. It is powerful. The moment you reach out to one person, the moment you help one dog, one ant, one poor person, you feel good. Don't be ashamed of that. And then that gives you confidence, and then you can give to the next person. So when Arturo first asked and wanted, I sent him a book. And then a second letter came. I thought, oh God, there's no money, but I'll give him a book. I found a book. Then a third, before the 40th person, I was starting to get some courage, because it grows. Each step grows into the next one. So you start small. And this is a profound way to make you happy. Do not think that's inferior. Do not be ashamed of that. That is profound. That's what I wanted to say tonight. That main point. So there always is a reason to despair. Of course there is. The world is a terrible place sometimes. But if we can do one small thing, and then it leads to the next, and then a person will be inspired and they'll want to help you. That's how the Prison Project grew, I promise you. We had people lining up to volunteer because they were so impressed by the work. They so wanted to do, people want to do something, you know. People want to be used. You can see this in the center, you know. Charmaine's running the centre. She's got a whole team of people, and each person wants to give something, and then that inspires another person. That inspires another person. It's so profound, actually. And then we feel good. You're only saving one mouse, but you can feel good about it. And then when you feel good, you're optimistic. When you feel good, you're confident. If you do nothing and just despair and look the other way, you just get more and more depressed, you know. It takes courage, but it's logical if we can understand it. That's what I wanted to say tonight. And it only took me 15 minutes. I'm very sorry. At everybody else's pace, it'd be now 6 o'clock and I could have gone, but I talked too fast. So you have to ask me some questions to fill out the conversation. All right, your turn now, come on. Nothing? You all agree with me? Good, I'm happy. What's the problem with what I just said? Is there some problem with what I just said? Is it difficult what I just said? Can you argue with me? Argue with me. I'm happy. Just have a conversation.
Hi.
Okay, so Alexandra, you talk to me, honey.
I just wanted to get your thoughts a little bit. You talk about the overwhelming part of trying to help everybody, but it's a lot at the same time. So I think I struggle with that. And I just wanted to know, like, you said you take one thing at a time, but sometimes
One person at a time, one mouse at a time, one dog at a time. Deal with what's in front of you. Don't just have a big vision of all the suffering out there. Do what you can right now with the beings in front of you. You've got to start right where you are, not look into the sky. Because if you keep looking into the sky of all the suffering people over there in another country, you'll stand on the mouse and won't even notice. So one step at a time, dealing with what's right in front of you. This is the most profound but simple approach.
Thank you.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that from my part, I work as an immigration paralegal, and I get like the worst of the worst
Oh
cases.
my God, you certainly would, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of suffering.
There is a lot of suffering. So do you find that attitude works, or do you find that you get overwhelmed sometimes? You must get overwhelmed sometimes because the world is a suffering place.
There's really, I think there's two cases that I actually taken home with me because they were that bad, torture involved and everything.
Okay.
But then I feel like you have compassion for all these people that are trying to get their legal status. They've been through so much. Not a lot of them will get the help they need.
That's right.
And then you get like your everyday stress of your life.
That's right.
And I try to like imagine that having compassion with it, say like my life is so good compared to, I've been so blessed compared to all these people.
Yeah.
But sometimes it does get overwhelming, and I think it's a combination of everything.
So how do you manage? What do you think is a good strategy for managing that?
I'm learning.
And that's a good point, Alexandra, because that is a big issue for all of us, you know. So that's the wisdom wing. That's where we've got to have our own. It's sort of like if you're out there all day having to run around delivering food to 27 people every day. If you don't do your jogging and your push-ups every day, you get exhausted. You get my point now. So that's the wisdom wing. So you got to qualify yourself to have the mental strength to be compassionate, and that means you've got to have your own little practice. You've got to know your own mind well. You've got to know your own limitations. You've got to be disciplined in your own practice, dealing with your own self. In other words, if you get depressed easily in your own life, then your ability to help others will be very limited. If you get angry easily about all the wrong politics and the lousy bureaucracy, that'll exhaust you. So by working on your own mind, learning to not get depressed, learning to not get angry, learning to be disciplined in a good practice, that's what strengthens you and makes your ability to help others even better. You've got to have both approaches. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Sleep, have a good massage sometimes, have a good weep sometimes, then pick yourself up and just keep moving.
I find it that I have like a difference when I do my practices in the morning.
That's it, darling. Precisely. That's the whole point. That's like doing your push-ups and your jogging to get you to ready to get out there and help people all day. It's a good analogy, baby.
But
Well
sometimes with the stress, you just like, oh, I'll do it afterwards. I'll do it afterwards.
no, that's no good. That doesn't work. You've got to be disciplined.
Yeah, that's
then
what I'm working
then
at.
you get the benefit, and then you're more useful. It's so intelligent. Well done. Good on you, Alexandra. Thank you, darling.
Thank you.
What else, people? Anybody else have a point to make? So this is the essential point. And that's the meaning of the wisdom wing. Sometimes, it means not just being nice to yourself, having a good sleep, having a good weep, eating well. That's all crucial. But it also means doing the discipline of an inner practice of knowing your own delusions, knowing your own fears, knowing your own anxiety, knowing your own anger. Don't blame other people for that, and learn to work on that part of yourself. That's what gives you inner strength and confidence. So you've got to have these two wings of the bird. And the other advantage of doing your own work every day is when you lessen your own neuroses, you can see people more clearly, and you don't get caught up in the rubbish so easily. So you're the beneficiary of both of these. And in the end, so is everybody else the beneficiary, They both wings help each other perfectly. It's such a good analogy. I never get tired of using it, What else, people? Any other points? Anybody at all? Nobody? And we've got to do it every day, And the thing is, until you've really got some decent concentration doing shamatha, which most of us haven't got because we don't spend our lives in retreat, until we've got really good control over our minds by getting concentration, which is itself advanced, you're still going to be struggling with your mind every day. And that's why we have to learn to navigate the rubbish and not have any expectations that you should be better than you are, And that's what perseverance is. Perseverance, it's very interesting. They teach in the final stages of the path to Buddhahood, in the Bodhisattva path, in the final stages of the Bodhisattva path, once the Bodhisattvas achieve bodhicitta, you then practice what they call the 6 perfections. And so the first 4 are really perfecting the compassion wing. It's these bodhisattvas, this is the long-term, big picture point of view. The bodhisattvas, the great bodhisattvas who've got this bodhicitta, they go life after life after life, practicing generosity, practicing morality, practicing patience, and practicing perseverance. And then that's perfecting the compassion wing. And then in the wisdom wing is the last 2, where they perfect concentration and they perfect wisdom. So it's like the essence of the entire path. So this perseverance is a very interesting one. And we can relate it to our own ordinary lives. We're not great bodhisattvas, but we all need this one badly. So this one is kind of, you hear about it, or you need joyful effort. I mean, it sounds exhausting. Joyful effort? What are you talking about? Who's joyful in their effort? Nobody. Effort is horrible. So what do they mean by this perseverance? What do they mean by joyful effort? Well, it's really important to understand it. So the way to understand it, and it's very sobering to hear it, the opposite is called laziness. So as soon as we hear that, we get nervous, What do you mean lazy? We kind of get defensive. So let's analyze it. And there's like levels of this laziness. And this is not meant to be punitive or critical. It's when we've really got some clear understanding of our own mind, our own abilities, and and knowing what we're trying to achieve. We'll need to understand this laziness. And there's different levels of it. Well, the most obvious in-your-face laziness that we've all got is what we call can't be bothered. Oh, I can't be bothered doing that. This is really quite profound when we unpack it, and you'll understand this. So think about this. What's the thing you can't be bothered doing? The thing that takes too much effort. And what's the thing that takes too much effort is the thing that attachment doesn't want. So when we understand attachment right at the beginning of junior school, grade 1, entry, no, high school in Buddhism, the middle scope of teachings, when we understand the mind, we really become our own therapists, and we really see in depth what attachment is and how the deepest, most primordial level of attachment, more than for sex or drugs or rock and roll or even being loved. In one way, this particular attachment is desperate need to stay in our comfort zone. Forget about $1 million. We just want enough to get our tea and our coffee when we feel like it. Forget about, wanting the best, most luxurious house on the planet. No, we just want to feel comfortable. We want the right temperature, the right sounds, the right amount of comfort, the right comfy couch, the nice meal. Be in our comfort zone. This is a very deep craving in all of us. So then we'll go, well, excuse me, I'm a human being. Aren't I allowed to be comfortable? Of course we are, but that's not the issue. We can't be defensive. We've got to understand the primordial depth of this deep, this attachment to feeling comfortable. Physically, straight away, look at the other one. Mentally, we don't get outside our comfort zone. We don't want to be threatened by having people be mean to us. We don't want to have things that upset the apple cart. We want to be comfortable mentally and physically. And that means we want to follow what attachment wants and give it what it wants every second. This is the most basic level describing what Buddha calls samsara, why we suffer. So of course, because it doesn't feel like suffering, it feels like being a nice human being who gets sleep when I need it and food when I need it. Aren't I to have that? We'll say, well, of course we are, but we've got to understand it in more depth. That happens in high school. Here we're talking the compassion wing. So using an order. So what we're talking here is practicing Dharma. We're not talking ordinary things, but it's good to use the analogy of ordinary things. Then we'll understand this attitude very deeply. So the Normal Lamas say, it's common sense in your daily life, in the samsara activities, the thing that you will persevere in doing, it's obvious, is the thing that the benefits of getting. So, the benefits of having a nice ice cream on a hot day. So you'll make the effort to do it. I mean, we're talking ordinary life here, nothing special. Of course, this is a samsaric attitude, but we'll understand the analogy. The moment you know the benefits of something, naturally, you will make the effort to do it. So here we're talking Dharma practice, of course, which is 1,000 times harder, because for all of us, even if we've been Buddhists for years and years, it's really quite abstract to think of the benefits of being a Bodhisattva. You love to read about them. We love to watch the Dalai Lama. We love to see his incredible energy and enthusiasm, how he's never given up for the last 70 years. He took over running Tibet at the age of 15, people. Can you imagine then the unbelievable hard work he has to have done? He hasn't given up, and he's 85 now. He literally has not given up for 75 years. 70 years. Think about that. And he's still perky and happy and cracks jokes about his enemies. So clearly, can you imagine the effort he would have to have made? Okay, he's a Buddha. Okay, he's a Bodhisattva, but we get the point. So if you don't know the benefits of why you're trying to practice, why on earth would you persevere? Why on earth would you make effort? Of course you wouldn't. And that's why most of us find it so hard, because it's really hard to see the benefit. We can hear theoretically the benefit of being less angry, less depressed, less jealous. I mean, it sounds so delicious. But look at what you have to do to get there. That means you've got to put up with your boring husband. How else can you give up anger, folks? Unless you meet a person who makes you angry. Think about it. If you go to the gym, you can admire the effort of people who go to the gym. You see the lovely photos of them. You see them in the videos. They're muscle tone. They're thin, not much fat. They're thin waist. It looks so exciting. And you think, I'd love to be like this. This is ordinary samsara again, okay? You can see the benefit of the gym, but just go to the gym on the first day. You're all perky and excited. Oh, I want to look like my girlfriend next door, who's 20 pounds lighter with muscle tone. You're so excited initially, right? You can see the picture. You can see her, but look what happens when you go to the gym. You puff and you pant and you're exhausted. You've got to go past your comfort zone, baby. If you're on that little rowing machine, I like the rowing machine. If you're on that rowing machine and you love the first few pushes and pants and puffing, but then it starts getting a bit tough, What do you think you want to do? You want to stop immediately. You don't want to make that effort, and then you forget all about your vision. Oh, I'm so tired. I've got to stop doing the rowing machine. And you go home and you're fat as normal, as usual, and you give up because you forget the benefit. So even the gym, we can see the benefit, and it's hard to persevere. And that's samsara. So imagine the effort we have to make to stop being attached, to stop being angry, to stop being anxious, to stop being depressed. Of course, it's hard work, people. Be humble with yourself. That's why you got to take it one step at a time. You don't try to lose 20 pounds overnight at the gym. You will die instead. You've got to understand cause and effect. You've got to understand it's incremental. You've got to have a clear picture of what you want to become. And that's why it is powerful to have examples like His Holiness, like our own spiritual teacher, like Lama Zopa. You've got to look at them. Don't put them in the sky. Don't just say, oh, that's just Lama Zopa. No, his very presence is showing his disciples, his students, people like me and others who've decided, I want to be like Lama Zopa. You use, and you've got to use that as your example. Otherwise, the concept of Bodhisattva is in a book. Then I think I do want to be like him. I want to be free of delusions. I want to be joyful all the time. I want to have that level of compassion. You've got to want it and never forget it and aspire every day. And then that keeps you going. And then you see where you are now and you go one baby step at a time. That's joyful. Mightn't be joyful in the beginning, but eventually it will become joyful effort, and eventually you will have programmed your mind to the point where it will be automatic. We've got to go one step at a time. We have all these cliches. Our mummies taught us that Rome is not built in a day. Everything starts with the first step. We know all these sayings. They're profoundly true. You pave the way. You've got to remember it every day. Give yourself a pep talk. And then you'll make effort. And slowly it'll even become joyful effort. Which is why? Because you're tasting your own potential. That's what's happening. You're tasting your own potential. You can get a taste of your own possibility. And that's what gives us so much courage, I tell you. What do you think, folks?
Venerable Robina, you mentioned 3 types of laziness.
Yes. Okay, I'll make you more miserable and tell you the rest.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one, often they treat the first one as sort of, for me, is kind of mixed with the second one, but they're all mixed together, these. So there's this other one, you see, they even talk about one type of laziness is making effort to do samsaric things like the gym, losing weight. You know, in other words, any action that's labeled samsaric would be an action that is just following attachment. Don't get depressed about that. It makes sense. So we're talking here effort necessarily in developing your qualities, in lessening your delusions, in growing your goodness. So the second level, but it's often mixed with the first one. This is one we all know so deeply, you know. It's called, oh, I'm too busy. I'll do it later. This is our worst crime against ourselves, but this is so sneaky. Listen, most of my jobs on my computer, I'm very fortunate, are so-called Dharma jobs. I have editing. I write to people, advise letters, you know, I do things on different things that are labeled Dharma. So I'm fortunate my jobs are Dharma jobs. So there's maybe some, not even intrinsic, but there's some merit possibility if I have a good motivation. But still, there are some jobs I leave in my folders that I put off till doing later because I've got to make effort to do them. We all know this. So again, use your ordinary life as an example, your ordinary samsaric examples. We all know we carry around this burden of undone jobs that we put off doing because we put off doing, and you go to yourself, oh, I'll do it later. So what is the thing you can't be bothered doing? No, sorry. What is the thing you're too busy to do? And it's a lie, basically. We lie to ourselves. We believe our own propaganda. So so what is it? Oh, I'm too busy. I will do it later. So again, analyze. What is the thing I am too busy to do? The thing that takes too much effort. And what is the thing, back to the first one, that takes too much effort is the thing that attachment doesn't want, the thing that gets me out of my comfort zone. So this type of laziness is like double trouble laziness. Bad enough, oh, I can't be bothered. At least you're being honest. But I'm too busy is lying. The thing you're too busy to do is the thing that you haven't prioritized. And we use this all the time as a defense against our own ego's laziness. Basically, we've got to be very sincere with ourselves, not to beat ourselves up, no, but to be authentic and to be truthful. So, you know, for example, oh, I'm so busy, I can never get down to do it, I can never get to go to any teachings, I'm too busy, I've got to run the family and do this and do that. But I mean, that's some truth in there. We are always too busy. Don't feel like I'm always a bit brutal how I talk, I realize. But I was mean to my friend one time, one woman, one person, one friend. Every time I'd see her, she lived like 50 kilometers in Sydney. She lived like 50 kilometers from the center, which is a long way to go. It's 30 miles to get to the center, you know, for the teachings. And they didn't have Zoom in those days. So she'd always say, oh, I'm so busy, I cannot get to the center of Robina for all the teachings. I just can't, I'm too busy. I've got the family, I've got the kids, it's a long drive. And I always said, well, I'm not complaining. I'm not asking you to come to the teachings. It's okay, you know. So then I was a bit naughty and I said one day, if there were a check for $500 at the center, would you find the time to come and get the check? Of course she said yes. But don't be embarrassed by this. Look at what I mean by that. Even if we're rich people, we all know the benefits of $500. I'm sorry. We all know the benefits of a gift called $500. So of course, as soon as you see the benefit of it, you will instantly say to you in your mind, oh, I'd like to do that. You'll pop the kids in the back of the car. Let's go, kids. We've got to go and pick up $500. Everyone will get excited. You'll drive to get the $500 and you go back home again because you know the benefits. So this is the simple point. And of course, it's harder to see the benefits. Now we can go on Zoom. It's easy. But I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm not trying to say we should be fundamentalists with ourselves. What I'm getting at with this type of laziness, we've got to be very honest with ourselves, because the point is the thing we put off doing is the thing that takes too much effort. But we lie to ourselves and say, I'm too busy, I'll do it later. Because we know actually every time you say that, it makes it harder the next time you say, I must do it. And then it'll be even more easy to say, I'm too busy. And before you know it, you carry around this burden of guilt and pressure from these undone jobs that you feel you're too busy to do, because later never comes. And we all know when you do that job, you're so shocked it took like 30 minutes. And the relief you feel, the relief you feel is incredible, you know. So we've got to be more disciplined, in other words. And this is why we always admire certain people, because they don't put things off. They do it right then. We would achieve 10 times more in every day if we didn't put things off. Okay, you can't change overnight, but be conscious of this. That's the point I'm getting at. We need to be conscious of this point and not to lie to ourselves. At least be honest. It's going to take me an effort to do that job. I've got aversion to that job. It's got to be so much work to organize those things. You know, all those things in our houses. This is just samsara again. Look at the samsaric jobs we keep putting off doing. I'll do it later. And before you know it, you've built up and built up and built up. I leave my email, in my emails in my inbox, and I'll do that one tomorrow. I'll do that one tomorrow. Before you know it, it's a week has gone by, you know. So it's incredible discipline. We admire people like that, who when they think, you know, and you don't. But the thing is, again, we've got to have this balance between making, everything's like this. There's got to be a balance between making an effort to do an extra 5 push-ups, not 400, because you'll break your back. You do it incrementally. You do it gradually, you know, one step at a time. Not be too intellectual, and this is the point. We know, when even using the analogy again of the gym, ordinary analogy, which is not technically, you know, effort, it's just samsara. We know the analogy of the gym. If you go past those, you know, you do, as soon as you start to puff, you don't stop your rowing, you do 1 more minute, 2 more minutes, and then tomorrow you do 3. And then you look back and you realize how far you've come. We all know that, and that gives us courage. That gives us courage. That's why discipline is so important. I know almost when you read the yogis, you know, like Geshe Lama Kontrog, who had an insane level of effort. These yogis meditate day and night, for God's sake, you know, because they practiced for years and years and lifetimes. So unbelievable. He said, but what he would say, you know, he lived in this little cave, naked, and he'd do his practices, and then he'd have a relax. And he'd be sitting in the sun, and his attendant, who's, you know, doing the biography with me, he said he's completely relaxed So you always say, when you do your session, you really do your session hard. And when you relax, you really relax properly. But our problem is because we're so full of anxiety of all our undone jobs, even when we do relax, we're full of anxiety about the next job. So we can't even relax properly, you know. So we have to learn to make effort, really make effort, delight in that effort, and then completely relax and completely enjoy, and then you go back again. It's really, you know, it demands a lot of wisdom, a lot of clarity, a lot of discipline, and not guilt, not neurotic, not pushing, not extreme. We've got to learn to find our own balance in that. And then whatever effort we make, you rejoice in it, you delight in it, you give yourself a happy pat on the back for yourself, you know. It's so important. We have to navigate our own practice like this. Then you might, so you're just tired, you know. This is the interesting point, because this is another major point. This is something huge for us. We're so obsessed with our bodies, I think, you know. We're so obsessed with our comfortable body. The body has to be comfortable. And the second we get tired, because we identify so strongly with the body, as Lama Yeshe says, we make the body the boss. The moment you get, let's say you're working hard, and then you start to feel tired, then we just assume that because your body is feeling tired, that your mind should get anxious. We've always assumed that, and that's why we stress out. You do not stress out because you're tired. You stress out, stress is mental. And that's the miracle, when we can begin to distinguish between the physical feelings and the mental attitude. That's the liberation. That's when we can really grow our effort. And we all know that's possible. When you're in love with somebody, when you were younger, well, you might be young now, but whatever, when I was younger, I'd hang out and smoke my marijuana, and if I was in love with somebody, I would spend all night, as Lama Yeshe puts it, dancing and drinking, blissing out, smoking my marijuana, blissing out, having these conversations with this new divine boyfriend all night. And then tomorrow morning you go to work completely exhausted, but you are blissed out, aren't you? So it's clear that the physical pain is not the cause of suffering. It's the mental pain. Or the other one I want to say, we love to say, it's the favorite saying we've all got in our world. Everybody on the planet says, oh, I'm so busy. We are all busy. It's a fact. But, you know, I remember years ago, Charmaine and I talked about this. I remember years ago when I worked at Wisdom in London, years ago, 40 years ago, when I was working, and I was busy. I like to be busy. I'm a busy girl. It's my mind. I like to be busy, you know. But you get too busy. Of course you do. But I decided as a strategy, I made a vow. I will never again say, not even I am too busy. I will never again say I am busy. Now, I can't tell you the miracle that has helped. You know, I'm still neurotic. I'm still ridiculous. I need my sleep every night. I can't wait to get to bed. I get stressed sometimes, you know, too much work, get all this self-pity. But I'd never say the words I'm busy, ever. And as for answering people's emails and saying, oh, I've been so busy, I'm so sorry I didn't answer you. How rude to say that to someone, that you're too busy to answer that person's email. It's so rude. So you try it, because once you stop saying I am busy, you'll stop thinking it. I promise you, it's a miracle. Try it. Okay. More questions. Give me some questions. I'll give you people. I'm sure we're communicating here.
Hi, me again.
Yes, Alexandra, how can I help you?
You talk about forms of attachment, and I'm taking myself as an example.
Question, darling. Alexandra, tell me a question. Cut to the chase. Ask me a question. It's helpful.
So some of the attachments that I found in myself are really, I couldn't see them. They were so familiar in me.
I know, darling. Ask a question, Alexandra.
So how can you search for it if you cannot see them? So you can.
Okay, so let me use an analogy, Alexandra. Let's say you have a garden out your backyard, but you don't know botany. That's a possibility, isn't it? And you're asking me, how can I identify a weed from a flower? You're asking me that, aren't you? What's your answer?
Usually I go to meditation.
No, I'm asking you a literal question about your garden. I'm asking you, if you don't know botany, how can you distinguish between a flower and a herb? You can't, can you?
Mm-mm.
So what if you want to learn to be a good gardener and distinguish between the herbs and the flowers, if you want to be a good practitioner and distinguish between the delusions and the virtues, you better learn botany, and you better learn Buddha's botany, hadn't you, which is Buddhist psychology. That's your answer, baby. It's very simple.
Thank you.
You understand me?
Yeah.
Looking into your mind is not enough, darling. That's like looking at a garden and keep thinking one day the herb will reveal itself to you and the weed will reveal itself to you. That's superstition. You have to learn to know how to identify them. That's your job. That's why you have to learn Buddhist psychology if you want to be a Buddhist. That's your choice. And most of us don't. We just think if I look at my mind, I'll sort of see it one day. No. You've got to learn to know what is attachment, what is anger, how can I tell the difference? It's quite precise work you have to do, and that's theoretical. And then when you focus on your mind, you'll start to identify, sweetheart. That's literally what being a Buddhist means every day.
Thank you.
Good darling. What else, people? Anybody else?
Venerable Robina, this is Aida again. You really helped me a lot with this laziness of busyness, because I have not seen it that way
No, it's
before.
interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. isn't it?
Yes, and I see that I carry that anxiety of undone jobs
That's it,
also.
darling.
But also that gives me from my practice is the idea that I may not be able to do it,
Do what?
to achieve whatever I'm
What do you
looking
mean?
for.
I thought you have to be more clear with me. What do you mean by that?
That I
sweetheart?
can't really do the practice or get the
I
benefits
don't
of the
understand what you mean,
practice.
darling. You have to give me keep it more down to earth and explain what you're saying, because I don't quite understand.
Able to do this, that's basically
Do what, darling? Do what, sweetheart? Please.
inner practice.
What do you mean by that, darling? Please spell it out for me. I hear the words, but it's good for us to communicate very clearly. Give me an example of what you're talking about.
Starting with the daily practice and the meditation,
Okay,
and
so what
seeing
is
the
it you're saying-
benefits of
what is
that.
it you're saying so what is it you're saying you can't do?
Idea that I may not be able to achieve all these
Achieve
things
what,
that we
darling?
talk.
Achieve what, sweetheart?
Liberation, get rid of my attachments, get rid of
Okay,
all
so
the crap that I'm
okay,
carrying.
are you a Buddhist? I'm just asking you. I'm not saying you should be. Are you a Buddhist?
I don't know if I am
Oh,
that.
okay, so you
I don't
haven't-
know if I can
Okay,
call
good,
myself
but now
that.
I know the answer. Now I know the answer, darling. So then if you're not sure even what liberation is, if you're talking Buddhist liberation, then you don't jump ahead of yourself. You're not sure what that is yet. You don't know if it's even possible. So you've got to look into it to see if it's something you'd want to achieve. I mean, so what is it you do want to achieve? What is it you do want to
To
achieve?
achieve this liberation. I do want to get rid of all
Or
this
you-
stuff, and I do want to build more compassion.
Good, darling. Listen,
And
Aida,
I do believe I have those traits, and I've been
Good.
studying this for about
Good.
6 years, but I
Okay.
still have
okay. So what you're telling me is, but you just said you're not sure you're a Buddhist. I'm not saying you should be. We're trying to use words in a serious way. That's what I asked you. If you'd said to me, yes, I'm a committed Buddhist, Robina, I'm on the path for several years, and then I would have known how to answer you. But you're just telling me you're not sure you're a Buddhist. So that means you haven't found your path yet. So how can you say you can or can't achieve those things? Because you haven't found a path that you've got confidence in and to follow the steps. So have you found a path or not, darling? I'm not saying you should.
Yes, I'm
What is
sure
that
of that. I think it's the label, it's the
What path is that, sweetheart? What path have you found that's called yours? What is the name of this path?
it's
Have you
called
got the-
Buddhism.
So you
It
are
is.
a Buddhist. You said before you weren't
Theology
sure.
of Buddhism is this
darling.
understanding of the
Sweetheart, listen. When I asked you before, you said, no, you're not sure if you're a Buddhist. So you're telling me you are a Buddhist.
Okay, then I am, I guess.
So you've committed yourself to the Buddhist path
Yes, I have.
and you've taken refuge and you've got a practice.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So where's your problem? Have you studied the teachings? Have you heard about how some people have achieved this goal? Have you heard about the Buddha? Have you heard about the Dalai Lama? Have you heard about the thousands of yogis over the last 2,500 years who've written all the literature, who are the great saints and bodhisattvas who've become Buddhas? Have you seen that thousands and thousands of people have achieved this goal? Have you noticed that?
Yes, I have
So
all
then what
that.
makes you think, sweetheart, that you're not capable as well? If they're human beings, you're a human being. So you follow the steps that they followed. So then it would be logical that you could eventually achieve it. Isn't that reasonable?
Yes, it is. And my mind tells me that. And
So, sweetheart, where's your problem?
myself, basically.
What, darling?
The
what?
obstacles that I put in myself, the ideas that I might not be able to understand fully or be able
Okay,
to
so what are you going to
realize
do?
all this.
So what do you think the method is to get some confidence? What should you do?
Deal with this laziness that you're talking
No, that's
about.
just
Basically,
that's one tiny aspect, darling. If you doubt that you can achieve it, it's like you're learning tennis and your Federer is your coach. You can see it's possible. And then one day you have all this self-doubt. Oh, I don't think I can become like Federer. So what would you do with that? What would you do with that information in your mind? How would you argue with it? What would you say to yourself?
there are days that I have this tremendous
That's
enthusiasm,
right. So
but
what
there
would
are
you do
days
with
that
that?
doubt comes into my.
Exactly. So what do you do with a doubt? How do you argue with a doubt?
Put more effort,
No,
learn
that's
more,
not enough. That's
study
not
more,
enough. No,
see the
no,
scripture.
that's not enough. You have to have confidence in the steps first. So you have to tell yourself it is okay. I can go one step at a time. It is possible. I can see that by looking at the other people. So you've got to come down on the earth and look at the steps, and you go one step at a time. Do you not think?
Yes, I think so. And I think what I need to do is go back to the lamb rim, start all over again, look at all that stuff all again and again.
What do you mean by starting it? Surely that's what you're doing every day. If you're not practicing the lamb rim, what are you practicing? Mickey Mouse, Dharma? What
I
does your
still
practice
have to understand a lot.
Of course you do, darling, but that's everybody. That's the way life is. That's just what practice is called. Practice is something you have to do because you don't know it yet. So you just keep moving. Don't think you have to go back to the beginning. That's silly. You move on from where you are right now, one step at a time, being disciplined, doing some practice every day, keeping your commitments, keeping your vows, watching your body, speech, and mind like a hawk, doing your purification at the end of the night, going to bed with a happy mind, and getting up the next morning and doing the same again. What do you think?
Sounds like a lot of work. Yes. It's effort, but I do find that joyful effort that you're talking.
What would you prefer to do instead?
I don't think I want to do anything else, really.
What do you do instead that it makes this so much effort? How else do you spend your time? Making effort to do what? What are all the other things?
The daily things, taking
Why
care of
can't
my family.
you make them Dharma?
Sorry.
Why can't eating, sleeping, and going to the toilet and washing the dishes and cooking for your family also be Dharma? Why not?
I do that.
How do you do that?
When I read and I just.
How do you make your ordinary life Dharma, sweetheart?
Do try to practice that every day, in every moment. Feel that compassion, generate that generosity, have a morality in myself.
I'm talking something much more simple. You have to sleep, right?
Yes.
You have to eat.
Of course.
Go to the toilet.
Yes.
Take care of your family. The family you take care of. You have to go to work and earn money and dress yourself and buy clothing and drive the car, all those things?
Yes, of course.
Okay, good. I'm asking you the question again. Keep it simple. Don't go in the sky. How do you make those actions Dharma actions? Do you know the technical answer?
Not sure if I do.
Okay, good. I'll tell you. Do you know Lama Zopa?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. He will tell us all the time, day and night, because no thing has an intrinsic nature. Therefore, and then second, on the Bodhisattva path, everything you do, eating, sleeping, going to the toilet, etc., can become a Dharma action because you decide, I'm going to do this with the wish to become a Buddha so I can benefit other sentient beings. That means your motivation, you've got attachment there, but you put bodhicitta on top. That transforms the action of eating and sleeping and going to the toilet into a Dharma action. So that means 24 hours a day, you're creating Dharma actions. It's just it's a wisdom, not to be depressed about it, not to think that practice is only when you're on your cushion. It's skillful means, and that comes from studying the teachings. So just keep reading a little bit every day, keep understanding these technical points, and you'll start to rejoice that you're practicing all the time, sweetheart. What do you think?
Thank you. I guess the antidote to this dependency is that perseverance, you know, having the faith to do this and getting the benefits.
Having the what to do it?
Faith?
How about the word confidence instead? Self-confidence.
Okay, I like that.
Good, darling. Thank you. You're just like the rest of us. So thank you for being the example.
Thank you.
Thanks, sweetheart. What else, people? 5 minutes to go. No, that'll do maybe. Charmaine, any thoughts?
Anthony had a question. He
Oh,
says,
good, Anthony. Hello, darling. How are you? My old friend, Anthony. Talk to me, sweetheart.
I'm
What's your-
fine. Good to see you again.
Absolutely.
Good to see you again, Venerable Bina.
Yes. Tell us your
Bless
question.
you.
What's your question?
I typed it out. Let me try and see.
All right, sweetheart.
Um, it said, I'm a committed Buddhist and I want to attain liberation and take refuge in the three jewels as soon as possible. How can I attain this?
And I thought you'd taken refuge already years ago, Anthony.
I know. I've come back again.
You gave it up.
No, I never gave it up. I went to India 5 times and spent
So
a
why
year
are
in
you saying
Baghdad.
you want to take refuge? You've already taken refuge. You're already on the path. So what do you mean?
I mean, full vows as a monastic in robes.
Oh, you want to become a monk?
Yes.
Oh, okay, then. So then have you looked online? We've discussed this, I'm sure. Have you looked online at the imisangha.com.org? You should look
Yes.
at the Sangha page and the website and look at what's involved. Maybe you should go to, are you doing any of that?
Well, yes, I've been back in California for about a year and a half, and
Okay.
I visited Seichen Ling and saw
Good.
Venerable Carol Karate,
Good.
and but I'm currently closer to in Los Gatos, Land of Medicine Buddha, a
Okay,
few
good.
miles
Go
away.
and talk to some of them. Go and talk to Venerable Steve. Do you know Venerable Steve?
I don't think I met Venerable
My
Steve.
friend, he's a monk. He lives there. He's been this old friend of mine. You go visit him and say, Robina sent me. You go chat to him about becoming a monk, okay? Venerable Steve.
Okay,
He's a wonderful monk.
I will do that. And I
You
saw
do
a
that.
Venerable Yangchen or something there.
Oh, very good. But you go talk to Venerable Steve best.
Venerable Steve.
Yep.
Well, I will do it. I'm gonna probably try and get there as soon as possible.
You do that. You do that. And you then feed and you can report back to me your conversation. Okay.
I will do so. Are you going to be coming to California soon?
I can't see me moving anywhere quite soon. I'm sitting in San Fe. I think another few months yet. I don't know. We'll see. If travel
Okay,
starts again easily, when the centers open up, I'll start traveling again. Not at
I-
the
I-
moment.
Is your health fine? I mean, we all want to hope for you and pray
My
for
health
you.
is
You know?
good. I've got a big red rash on my face. Apart from that, it's not on my.
Oh,
That's just my vanity gets upset. That's all. But apart from my red rash, I'm fine. I joke and say if it was on my bottom, I wouldn't mind, would I? Honestly, I'm fine. My health is good. Thank you so much, Anthony.
well, it's such a blessing to see you. I think I saw you in Bodh Gaya in 2018,
Yes,
but briefly.
exactly. I remember vividly.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing me. You've done so much. It's been incredible.
I'm happy, sweetheart. I'm glad to see you again. Keep in
Thank
touch.
you. Thank you so much.
Okay, darling. Time to
Okay.
go, you people. So let's watch our mind for 3 minutes, okay? Just be totally natural. We'll just do 3 minutes of Mahamudra, watching the clarity of our mind. Don't worry about what it means. Just close your eyes, sit up straight, and just determine for 3 minutes, I'm going to watch my thoughts like a hawk. Don't try to work out what the thoughts are. Don't try to have thoughts. Don't try to have a discussion with them. Just pay attention to your thoughts. That's it. 3 minutes. Just keep focused. Don't lose focus. Just watch. That's it. There's about 2.5 minutes. Good quality 2.5 minutes. Just steady the mind, okay? So gradually we build up the ability to see our thoughts. Gradually, by studying the Dharma, we learn to distinguish between the neurotic thoughts and the valid thoughts. Slowly, we just become our own therapist and can have conversations in our own mind and learn to navigate these thoughts and become in charge of them. This is the job of being a Buddhist, I promise. But it takes time, one step at a time, one step at a time. That's the wisdom wing. And then we can practice the compassion wing, one step at a time, one step at a time. Be humble, be patient with yourself, and persevere, okay? Much love, everybody. Jang chup sem chok ripo che ma ke panam ke gu ching ke panam pa me pa yang gong ne gong du pava sho ge wa di nyu du dag lama sangye drugyo ne drawa chi kyang malu pa de sala ge pa sho. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Charmaine.